So today we're going to be firing up the command prompt, and I'm going to show you some really helpful commands that you probably should know about. Stay tuned. The term DOS simply means disk operating system. That just means an operating system that runs from a disk. However, when most people are referring to DOS, they're referring to MS-DOS. And as you probably guessed, that stood for Microsoft Disk Operating System. Yeah, that's right. Back in the early days, Microsoft really had a good imagination when they were naming their products. They literally named their operating system. But you know what? To be perfectly honest with you, I don't think much has changed. You know, we have Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 9. Oh, wait. No, never mind. Let's not go there. Let's get back to DOS. DOS, or MS-DOS, is the operating system PCs had before Windows. In fact, it's the operating system PCs had with Windows, because until Windows XP was released, Windows literally ran on top of DOS. Today, on modern systems, the only remnant we have of MS-DOS is the command prompt. Even that Microsoft is trying to take away with the PowerShell. But luckily, we still have the good old command prompt. And while you can do a lot of things from within Windows, there's no replacing the command prompt for many tasks in Windows machines. So that's what we're going to be doing today. But first, we got to pay some bills. So check out today's sponsor. Is your copy of Windows 10 unactivated? Well, it doesn't have to be, because with today's sponsor, VIP SCD Key, you can get a valid Windows 10 license for under $20. Stop dealing with that stupid watermark on the desktop, the valid license for Windows 10. Also, with an activated copy of Windows 10, you can upgrade to Windows 11 for free. Just go to the link in the description below and pick up a valid Windows 10 license key. During checkout, use the code CYBERCPU for a 25% discount. Once you have your key, go to your activation settings in Windows 10 and click on the link that says Change Product Key. Enter the product key you just purchased and hit Activate. Now you don't have to deal with that stupid watermark that come with running an unactivated copy of Windows 10. Now, on with the video. So, the first thing we should probably do is cover some of the basics of the command prompt. So, let's jump on the computer and I'll show you a few things. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is open the command prompt up. And to do that, go ahead and click on your start button and just type CMD. And then from here, there's a couple different ways we can launch the command prompt. We can either just click on the app and that'll give us the command prompt with our regular permissions, or we can run it as administrator, which will give you the ability to run commands at the highest privileges that are possible from within command prompt. So we're going to go ahead and run this one as administrator. So once we do that, it wants you to say yes to the user account control. Go ahead and hit yes, and it'll fire up your command prompt. Now from here, there's a few things that we need to know to be able to kind of move around the command prompt. And the first one is how to get into different directories and stuff like that. And for that, we use the command CD, and that just means change directory. And then we want to type in which directory we want to change to from this point. So what I'm going to do is just hit the / command, which stands for root, and hit enter. And that'll give us the root of our C drive, or the very beginning of our C drive. And then from there, we want to be able to know what's inside the C drive. And for that, we just type dir for directory. And that'll give us a list of all the files that are in our C drive. Now, alternatively, what you could also do is type dir space and then put /A. And what that does is it'll give you every file of any attribute, and it'll include system files, hidden files, and things of that nature. So if we hit enter, as you can see, there's a much bigger list now inside of our C drive right here of all the different files that we couldn't see before. Now, alternatively, I'm going to go ahead and hit CD Windows here to go into the Windows directory. Now, if you type dir at this point and hit enter, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of files, and it scrolls through a whole bunch of pages of files because there's a lot of files within your Windows directory. If you want to break this down and make it a little bit easier, you can type dir switch /, and then the letter P, and this will be for page. And then when you hit enter, it'll stop after one page is complete. So as you can see, it starts here and it comes down and says press any key to continue. And then when you press a key, it goes on to the next page. Now, if you ever want to cancel a command that's in the middle of doing what it's doing, like we are doing right now, just go ahead and hit Control-C, and that'll cancel the command. And now we can also type cd space .. if we want to go back to the previous directory. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter, and now we're back to the root directory. So now what we're going to do is I want to go ahead and navigate to my desktop. So to do that, we have to go into the users directory. So we go cd users and hit enter. That'll give us into the users directory. And then if you want, you can run a directory again to see what's in this directory. And then hit enter, and you can see we have two folders. We have the public folder and my profile folder. So for that, we're going to go ahead and hit CD, rich, enter, and that'll go into my profile. And if we run a directory again, it'll show us all the different folders from within that directory. Now, here's another trick that you can use while you're moving through the command prompt. And if you type in CD and just the first letter of the folder you want to go into, so we want to go to desktop. So in this case, we're going to hit D. If we hit the tab key, it'll auto-complete the word for us. Now, as you notice, we also have desktop documents and downloads. Well, what if you wanted to go to downloads? Well, if you just hit tab multiple times, you can go ahead and it'll scroll through all the different directories that are named starting with the letter D. Now, if you don't want to have to worry about that, if you want to go directly to desktop, you can always type DES or the first few letters in the name and hit tab, and it'll go straight to it. And then when you hit enter, as you can see, we're now in the desktop. Now, the first command that I want to show you here is how to create a directory. So say we want to create a new directory on our desktop. Now, to do that, we're going to type MK for make and then dir for directory. And then hit a space, and then go ahead and name the directory whatever you want to name it. So I'm going to write mine test and hit enter. And as you can see right here, we just created a folder on our desktop. Now, let's say we want to move a file into that folder. So as you can see right here, we have our test document. Say we want to move this test document into our test folder. So to do that, all we do is type move space test.txt space, and then type the name of the folder you want to move it into. So in this case, it's going to be test. And then we hit enter, and it'll go ahead and move that file into that folder. And as you can see, it did in fact move the test file into the test folder. Probably should have named them different names to make it a little bit less confusing, but hopefully you got it there. Now, if we navigate into the test directory, so if we go cd test, it'll put us into that directory, and then we can run a directory if we wanted to see what's in it. And as you can see, we have the test text. And now let's say we want to copy this to somewhere else. Say I want to copy it to my downloads folder. So what I can do is I can write in copy, and then I'm going to write test text space. So an easy way to get into your downloads folder would be just to simply say you want to go to root users, root rich, root downloads, and then hit enter, and it'll go ahead and copy the file into your downloads folder. So if we were to click right here and go into our downloads, as you can see, there's our test file right there. So when you're working in the command prompt, you can always use another command too to help you out. So if you type in help and then space, and then whatever the name of the command is that you want to get help with, like in this case, we'll type dir and hit enter, it'll go ahead and give you the help file associated with that specific command. And as you can see, there's several pages here. So you can kind of go through here and see all of the different switches that you can use with the dir command. And if you hit enter again, it'll go and finish at the end. If for whatever reason the help command doesn't give you the help file associated with that command, you can also do it a different way too. If you type dir switch question mark and hit enter, it'll also give you the same thing. So there's a couple different ways to be able to get information on a command that you're using. So the last command that I'm going to show you in our basic overview here is a really important one, and that one is CLS, and it stands for clear screen. And if you hit enter, it'll go ahead and clear the screen for you. This will help to kind of clean things up if you have a bunch of commands that you've been running at once. Okay, so now that we've covered the basics, sometimes you might need more elevated privileges to run certain commands, and sometimes you might not. But let me show you how you can open the command prompt in different ways in order to get the privileges that you need. Let's get back on the computer. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close the command prompt here. And like I showed you before, if you hit start and you type CMD, you can just click on the command prompt normal, and that'll just give you a normal command prompt that doesn't have any elevated privileges. And if you click on run as administrator, it'll give you an administrator command prompt. However, let's just say you don't ever want to have to deal with opening a regular command prompt, and every time you open it, you just want it to run as administrator. Let me show you a really cool way to be able to make that happen. So go ahead and right-click on command prompt and click on open file location. And then from there, you'll get the shortcut for your command prompt. And there, all you got to do is right-click, click on properties, and then from properties, you want to click on advanced. And then from advanced, you want to check run as administrator. then go ahead and hit OK. Hit OK again, and then you can go ahead and close all this. And at this point now, if you type in CMD and you just click on command prompt like normal, it'll ask you for administrator permissions and it'll open up an admin version of the command prompt. However, there's another way that you can do this as well that works really well. So let's say you don't want to use the old CMD command, but you want to use the new terminal command. So if you open up terminal here, as you can see, it defaults into PowerShell, which is fine. But if you want a command prompt, you can click on this little tab right here and you can run a command prompt right there and it'll give you a regular command prompt. However, let's say you want an admin command prompt to be able to open when you open it in terminal. To do that, all you do is you hit this little arrow down right here, go into settings, and there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can click on command prompt, scroll down and hit run this profile as administrator. And what that'll do is once you hit save, every time you open command prompt at this point, it'll always ask for your user account control in order to give it administrator privileges to open an admin command prompt. Or you can also do this alternatively, is if we go down to command prompt, we're going to go ahead and uncheck this, hit save, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on the command prompt, go down to add new profile here, and then what we want to do is duplicate a profile. So for the duplicate profile, we're going to select command prompt, and we're going to go ahead and say duplicate. And then from here, for the name, we're going to rename this. Instead of just saying copy, we're going to rename this to admin. And then we're going to scroll down and we're going to check run this profile as administrator, and then go ahead and hit save right there. Now, at that point, you'll have two different selections. So if you click on this little arrow right here, as you can see, you'll have command prompt or you'll have command prompt as admin. Now, furthermore, if you just don't want to mess with the PowerShell and you just want this thing to open in command prompt every time, let me show you how to do that. You go down, hit settings right here, or if you're already in settings, it'll already be there. And then from there, you want to come up to the top where it says startup. Click on startup, and then where it says default profile, you can select the default profile that terminal opens up with. You can either have it be a regular command prompt, or you can even have it be an admin command prompt if you want. And then once you're done, you go ahead and hit save, and that'll save it as your default profile. So in that case, when we go ahead and close terminal here, and we go ahead and open it again, it'll ask for our user account control, and then hit yes, and it'll give you an admin command prompt just like that. Okay, so now that we've gone over the basics and you know how to run the command prompt as either a regular user or an administrator, let's get into some commands that you're actually going to need when fixing a computer. Many of these commands I use on almost a daily basis. Let me show you. So the first command that we're going to look at here is power CFG. So if you just type power CFG, and essentially all this stands for is power config. And if you go ahead and hit space, switch question mark, it'll give you all the different options that you can use with Power CFG. However, I'm going to show you a few of the ones that I like to use myself. And another tip is if you're running the same command multiple times, if you just hit the up arrow, it'll give you the last command that you actually ran. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to try switch A. And what this will show you is it'll show you the current power states that are currently enabled and supported on the system. Also, if you go ahead and type in Power CFG and then switch last wake, it'll show you how many times the computer's been woken up since the last boot and what the last device was that woke the system up. And as you can see, it was the USB controller. Obviously, it was my keyboard. Now, another command that you can use with Power CFG, we're going to go ahead and hit the up arrow again, and we're going to type in energy. And that's just going to be ENERGY. And then from there, it's going to go ahead and it's going to give you an energy report for the system. Now, this is going to take a minute to do, so I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead until this is done, and I'll show you how you can check out the report. All right, here we go. So as you can see, our energy report is going to be in users under rich. So if we go here, we're going to go ahead and go to this PC, go to C, go to users, and then go into my profile. And then as you can see right here is an energy report. We'll go ahead and double click on it, and it'll give you a report of all the different energy specifics on your system. I'm not going to bore you with all the specifics, but it gives you quite a bit of data for energy related topics. So the next one that I'm going to show you is one that's equally as helpful, if not more than that one right there. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit up, so we can get our command back. And then for this one, I'm going to type battery report. So you go BATTERY REPORT, and go ahead and hit enter, and it's going to go ahead and give you a battery life report. And as you can see, it saved it really fast. And that's probably because my system doesn't actually have a battery. But if you have a notebook, this will give you not only the different power cycles that the battery uses, but it'll give you the health of the battery as well. In this case, it just gives me an empty report because I don't actually have a battery. Some of the other ways you can use this command, and one way that I use this command all the time, is by enabling and disabling different power states on your computer. Let me show you that one. So if you type power CFG and simply type the letter H, this is for hibernate, hit space and type off. And what this will do is it'll turn hibernation off. Now this comes in really handy because if you want to disable your hybrid shutdown for whatever reason, like for instance, if you want to be able to recover data from the drive or be able to copy data to or from the drive from an external operating system, like if you boot off like a Linux CD or something like that, you have to turn off hybrid shutdown in order to get it to work. And this is the way I typically do it, is just by typing power CFG H off, and that'll turn hibernation off. Now, if you want to turn it back on, it's the same thing. You just type in power CFG H on, and that'll turn hibernation back on. Now, for the next command, we're going to go ahead and hit CLS to clear our screen. Now, the next command is shutdown. Now, this one, not actually going to run it because it'll mess up my screen recording. However, there's a few different switches that you can use for this command. So if you type in shutdown, and then afterwards type switch S, what this will do is actually just shut the system down. Now, if you type in switch R, it will go through and do a reboot on the system. However, there's one more that comes in really handy. If you type in shutdown switch R space and then switch O, what this does is it puts you into an advanced startup. This is how you can get into safe mode and things of that nature. Okay, so moving on, for our next command, we're going to look at the system file checker. Now this one, I went into way more detail with this one in a previous video, but I'm going to go ahead and give you just some of the really basic commands that you can use with this one. So first off, we're going to go sfc / verify only. And what this will do is it'll go through and it'll verify your system files. And it'll take a minute to complete. So I'm going to go ahead and let this one complete real quick, and then I'll get back to you. So once verification is complete, you can see that it actually did find some stuff wrong. So the way that we fix that is by simply typing sfc space and then / scan now. And then what that will do is it'll go through and actually do a system scan. Unfortunately, do the verification phase again, but once it finishes the verification phase, it will actually fix the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and let this one finish again. And this time we'll have it fix whatever integrity violations it found. And then we'll move on to the next command. Okay, there we go. Now it finished up. It said it found corrupt files and successfully repaired them. So we can move on to the next one. However, if for whatever reason it found corrupted files but was unable to fix them, that's where DISM comes in. Now, DISM simply stands for the Deployment Imaging Servicing and Management Tool. And this one right here, I'm not going to get into this tool right now because I did an entire video on how to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and just direct you to that video because I give a much more detailed explanation of SFC and DISM in that video. However, if you ever do run into that problem, that's how you fix it, is with DISM. Now, the next command we're going to look at is check disk. And this is a way where you can check your hard drive for different errors. And to run it, all you do is type in chkdsk for check disk. And then there's a couple different switches you can use. If you want, you can always hit switch ? and be able to get all the different switches all at once. However, the ones that you're going to need most of the time are going to be switch F, which checks the file system itself, or switch R, which actually checks for bad sectors. Now, switch R is automatically going to imply switch F was used in the first place. So I typically use switch R because, it gives a more thorough scan of the drive. However, switch F will be faster, but it won't check for bad sectors. Now, the next command that we're going to look at is system info. And essentially, it does exactly what you think it does. We're going to type in system info, and it'll go through and it'll run all the different information for your system itself. So if we're going to go ahead and scroll through here, you'll be able to see all the different things about this system, not only the operating system information, but also different hardware information, like for instance, the kind of processor the system has, the amount of memory the system has, and even the time zone that the system is set up to use. So this is a really useful tool if you just want basic system information for the computer that you're currently using. So as you can see, there are several commands that are extremely important for repairing systems. However, the command prompt also comes in really handy when you're troubleshooting network problems. So let's jump back on the computer and I'll show you some of the most commonly used commands for network troubleshooting. Okay, so just like before, we're going to type CLS to clear our screen here, and I'm going to show you some really basic commands for network troubleshooting. Now, the first one that everyone should know is ipconfig. So if you type in ipconfig, first off, I would highly recommend that you spell it right. And to do that, you type in ipconfig, and it'll go ahead and give you your IP information. So as you can see here, it shows my DNS right here, and I'm gonna have this blanked out right here, but on yours, you'll have your own specific one. It'll also show you your local addresses, your local IP addresses for your system. Now, if you wanna have more information than that, you can also go ipconfig switch all, and it'll give you a ton of information, including your physical MAC address, as well as a bunch of different IPs. It even comes down and gives you your DNS servers that you're currently using, as well as when your lease was obtained and when it expires for your IP address itself. Now, speaking of your lease, if for whatever reason you need to renew your lease for your IP address, then what you would do is you would type ipconfig, and then you would use the switch and you would do release. And what this will do is essentially boot you off the internet. Now, to get it back, what you're going to want to do is go ahead and type in renew, and it'll go ahead and connect back to the internet and get a new IP address for you. And there we go. Now, some of the other switches for ipconfig that can come in handy is, for instance, you can view your DNS cache. And if you want to do that, you go ahead and hit ipconfig switch display DNS, and this will go ahead and it'll show you your DNS cache. These are all the different DNS requests that Windows has made in order to associate different domain names to different IP addresses. Now, if you want, you can flush the DNS cache if you're having problems with your DNS, which happens a lot more often than you might think. So we're going to go ahead and hit up arrow again to get our command back, and we're going to type in flush DNS. And what that will do is it'll essentially flush the DNS cache that we just looked at before. So if we run that again, you can see there is no DNS cache because we flushed it. Now, moving on, we're going to look at the command netstat. So if we type in netstat, now I'm going to use the switch, which in this case, it uses a dash for switch instead of a /. We're going to type AN, and what that's going to show us is it's going to show us all of the different ports that are open on our system right now. So if we come up here, if we scroll through this, you can see that all of these different ports right here are currently listening, and some actually have things established on that port specifically. So you can get all of your port information and the different IP addresses that are connected to that port right here. So as you can see, we do have some remote IP addresses that are currently connected on different ports. Now, speaking of different IP addresses, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at the ping command. Now, what the ping command does is it essentially sends some random packets just to be able to test if we're getting network connectivity between two IP addresses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type ping 8.8.8.8. And what this is Google right here. So if we hit enter, it's going to go ahead and ping Google 4 times. So by default, it always sends 4 ping requests. However, if for whatever reason you decide you want to make more than that, then what you can do is you can type in ping-n and then give it a specific number. So I'm going to type in 5. And then I'm going to type in 8.8.8.8 again, and we're going to hit enter. And in this case, what it's going to do is it's actually going to make 5 ping requests to Google instead of the 4. Now, let's say that you don't want to have to deal with that. You just want it to ping continuously forever. Now, the way you would do that is you would go ping-t, and then you would type the IP address you want it to ping, and then hit enter. And at this point, it will ping forever, or at least until it's interrupted. Now, if you want to interrupt this command, all you have to do is go ahead and hit Control-C and it'll interrupt it. And at that point, it'll give you the rundown of what it found, any packets that it lost, or whatever the minimum, maximum, and average milliseconds were. Now, the next one that we're going to move on to is path ping. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to give you all of the different routers that are connected between you and the IP address that you want to find. So for that, we're going to type in path ping, and we're going to use the same IP address, Google. We're going to hit enter, and then what it's going to do is it's going to go through all of the different IP addresses that it has to go to in order to get to that IP address. And as you can see, there's quite a few right here that it has to jump through, but it'll give you all the different jumps that need to happen before it can reach the IP address that you're asking it to look for. Okay, so the next command we're going to look at now is going to be a command called tracert. And this essentially just means trace route, but it's spelled trace RT or tracert. And we're going to go ahead and hit enter. We're going to type 8.8.8.8 again and hit enter again. And what this does is essentially the same thing as ping path, but this one gives us a little bit more information. Like for instance, it gives us the milliseconds in which it takes to respond to the different servers that it goes through. But ultimately, it's going to give us the same information that we got from ping path before. Now, one option that you can make also is if you type -D for tracert, it won't actually resolve the DNS numbers. And as you can see, I did it wrong here. You have to put it before the IP address, not after it. So if we put -D here, it'll go ahead and do the same thing again, but it won't resolve the domain names themselves. So it'll make the app kind of go a little bit quicker. So it'll get to the end a little bit faster. So as you can see, there are tons of things that you can do from within the command prompt. In fact, there are many tasks that you can only do from the command prompt. So don't be afraid to familiarize yourself with DOS commands. They can be extremely helpful. And also, if there are any commands that you think I should have mentioned, then make sure that you mention them down in the comments below. I may make a sequel to this video. Now, earlier in the video, I said that I did a much better video on SFC and DISM. If you'd like to check that video out, then go ahead and click here. There's also a second part to that video that shows how to do the same thing from recovery. Believe it or not, it's two different processes. As always, you guys have a great day.